The notification chimed at 9:47 p.m., just as I was settling into my recliner with a beer and the remote. Karen's name appeared on my phone screen, along with a message that would have been perfectly normal on any other night. Going to bed early, exhausted from work. Don't wake me when you come up. Love you. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I stared at the text for a long moment, then glanced toward the window. My wife's car wasn't in the driveway. It hadn't been there when I got home from the construction site an hour ago. More importantly, I'd seen her silver Honda Accord pulling out of the Starlite Motel parking lot just 20 minutes earlier when I'd stopped for gas at the Shell station across the street. She hadn't been alone. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for what felt like an eternity. Joel Whitfield, 43 years old, civil engineer, married for 12 years, about to type the words that would blow up his entire world. I know, I just saw you leave the Starlite Motel. I hit send and immediately turned off my phone. The silence in our suburban home was deafening. The house Karen had insisted we buy in Maplewood Heights, with its pristine lawn and white picket fence, suddenly felt like a mausoleum. I walked to the kitchen window and peered through the blinds at Mrs. Holloway's house next door. Her living room light was still on, and I could see her silhouette moving around. The old woman never missed anything that happened on our street. She probably knew about Karen's affair before I did. My phone buzzed against the coffee table where I'd left it. Then again, and again. I let it ring. 20 minutes later, headlights swept across our driveway. Karen's Honda pulled in fast, the engine cutting off abruptly. I heard her heels clicking rapidly up the front walkway, then the sound of her key fumbling in the lock. She burst through the door like a woman on fire. "Joel! Joel! Where are you?" Her voice cracked with panic. I stayed in my chair, beer in hand, staring at the muted television. "In here, sweetheart. Thought you were exhausted and going to bed early." Karen appeared in the doorway to the living room, still wearing her black dress and heels. Her makeup was smudged, her hair disheveled. She looked exactly like a woman who'd just been caught cheating on her husband. "We need to talk," she said, trying to compose herself. "Do we?" I took a sip of my beer without looking at her. "Because according to your text, you're too exhausted for conversation. Must be all that hard work you've been doing." "Joel, please. Let me explain." I finally turned to face her. "Explain what, Karen? Explain why you lied to me? Explain why you were at a motel with another man? Or explain why you thought I was stupid enough to believe your bullshit story about working late?" Her face crumbled. The confident, successful marketing executive I'd married dissolved into a sobbing mess. "It's not what you think." "Really?" I stood up slowly, setting my beer on the side table. "Because what I think is that my wife is having an affair. What I think is that she's been lying to me for God knows how long. What I think is that she just got caught red-handed, and now she's scrambling for damage control." "Joel, please. Who is he?" The question hung in the air between us like a loaded gun. Karen's mouth opened and closed several times before any sound came out. "His name is Brent Wallace. He's an IT consultant we hired at work." "How long?" "Joel, how long, Karen?" 3 months. The words came out as barely a whisper. 3 months, 90 days of lies, of fake smiles over breakfast, of her kissing me goodbye while planning to meet another man. 90 days of me being the fool who didn't see what was happening right under his nose. "Get out," I said quietly. "What?" "Get out of my house, tonight. Find somewhere else to sleep." "Joel, you can't be serious. This is my house too. We can work through this. People get counseling, The only thing we're working through is a divorce." I walked past her toward the stairs. "I want you gone in an hour." "Where am I supposed to go?" I paused at the bottom of the staircase and looked back at her. I don't know, Karen. Maybe Brent has room at his place, or maybe the Starlite rents by the week. She started crying harder, but I didn't care anymore. I climbed the stairs to our bedroom, my bedroom now, and locked the door behind me. Through the thin walls, I could hear her making phone calls downstairs, her voice desperate and pleading. An hour later, I heard her car pull out of the driveway. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at Karen's desk in our home office, staring at her laptop. She'd left it behind in her haste to pack a bag and get out. The password was our anniversary date. How's that for irony? What I found in her email made my blood run cold. It wasn't just the affair. It was the planning, the calculation, the sheer contempt she had for me. Email after email between Karen and Brent, discussing their meetings, mocking my job, my appearance, my boring personality. There was even a spreadsheet, an actual fucking spreadsheet, tracking their rendezvous, complete with dates, times, and locations. But the worst part was the folder labeled Exit Strategy. Karen had been planning to leave me for weeks, consulting with divorce attorneys, researching how to hide assets, figuring out how to take me for everything I was worth. I sat back in the chair and laughed, actually laughed out loud in the empty house. Karen thought she was so smart, so careful, so far ahead of her dumb husband. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated me. The next morning, I called in sick to work and went down to my basement workshop. Karen had always hated this space, calling it my man cave with obvious disdain. She never understood why I needed a place to tinker with electronics, repair small engines, and work with my hands after spending all day managing construction projects. Now I was grateful for her disinterest. It meant she had no idea what I was capable of down here. I pulled out Karen's laptop and got to work. My degree might be in civil engineering, but I'd always been good with computers. Growing up poor meant learning to fix things yourself, and that included technology. While Karen was upstairs crying to her friends on the phone, I was downstairs cloning her hard drive and installing tracking software on her phone remotely. The beauty of modern technology is that cheating spouses make it so easy. Karen's phone was synced to her laptop. Her laptop was logged into all her accounts, and her accounts were connected to everything else. Within 2 hours, I had access to her location data, text messages, emails, social media, and banking information. My phone rang around noon. Red Murphy, my foreman and drinking buddy for the past 5 years. "Joel, you sick or just hungover?" Red's gravelly voice always sounded like he'd been smoking cigarettes since birth. "Neither. Personal emergency. Karen and I are getting divorced." There was a long pause. "Shit, man. I'm sorry. What happened?" "She's been cheating on me for 3 months. I caught her yesterday." "Jesus, you need anything? Want me to come over?" "Actually, yeah. I could use some help with a project." Red arrived an hour later with a 6-pack of beer and a toolbox. He was a big guy, 6'4", and built like a linebacker, with graying hair and hands like ham hocks. We'd worked together on dozens of construction projects, and he was the most loyal friend I'd ever had. "So what's the project?" he asked, following me down to the basement. I showed him Karen's laptop and explained what I'd found. Red's face darkened as I read him some of the emails between Karen and Brent. "This Brent guy sounds like a real piece of shit," Red said. "And your wife. Jesus, Joel. I never liked her much, but I didn't think she was this cold." "She thinks she's going to take me to the cleaners in the divorce," I said. "But she doesn't know that I know about her exit strategy. She's planning to claim I was emotionally abusive, that I controlled her finances, that I threatened her. Can she do that?" "Not if I document everything first." I pulled up the tracking app on my phone. "Look at this. She's at the Marriott downtown right now, probably with Brent." Red studied the screen. "You're tracking her phone?" "Among other things. I've got access to everything, her emails, her texts, her bank accounts, her social media. She's been so careful about hiding the affair, but she forgot to hide her digital footprint." "What are you planning to do?" I smiled for the first time in 24 hours. I'm going to give Karen exactly what she deserves, but first I need to gather evidence. Real evidence that will hold up in court and protect me from her lies. We spent the afternoon setting up surveillance equipment. Red had connections in the security business, and he helped me install a dash cam in my truck, set up hidden cameras around the house, and create backup copies of all of Karen's digital communications. You know, Red said as we worked, my buddy Tony owns a private investigation firm. He could help you document the affair officially. That's not a bad idea, but I want to handle the initial intelligence gathering myself. Karen's going to be more careless now that she thinks she's been caught. She'll make mistakes. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from Karen. Joel, we need to talk. I'm staying at the Marriott for a few days while we figure this out. I think we should try counseling. I showed the message to Red, who snorted. Counseling. Right, while she's shacking up with her boyfriend. The funny thing is, she actually believes her own bullshit, I said. She's convinced herself that this is somehow my fault, that she was driven to cheat because I wasn't meeting her needs. What are you going to tell her? I thought for a moment, then typed back, Take all the time you need, Karen. I'm not going anywhere. It wasn't a lie. I really wasn't going anywhere. But Karen was about to discover that staying put didn't mean staying passive. That evening, I drove to the Starlite Motel where I'd first seen Karen with her lover. The place was exactly what you'd expect from a cheap roadside motel, peeling paint, flickering neon sign, and the kind of clientele that paid in cash and didn't ask for receipts. I parked across the street and waited. Sure enough, at 8:30 p.m., Karen's Honda pulled into the parking lot. A few minutes later, a black BMW arrived. I watched through binoculars as a man got out of the BMW and knocked on room 237. Brent Wallace was exactly what I'd expected. Mid-40s, artificially tan, wearing an expensive suit and the kind of smug expression that screamed, I'm better than you. He was handsome in a generic, corporate way, the kind of guy who probably had his teeth professionally whitened and his hair styled at a salon that charged more than I made in a day. Karen opened the door wearing a hotel bathrobe. They kissed passionately before disappearing inside. I sat in my truck for another hour, taking photos and making notes. This was just reconnaissance, gathering intelligence for the war to come. But as I watched the light in room 237, I felt something cold and hard settling in my chest. Karen wanted to play games? Fine. I'd been underestimated my whole life. By my high school teachers, by my college professors, by my ex-bosses who thought a guy from the wrong side of town couldn't amount to anything. But I'd always been a quick learner, and I was about to teach Karen and Brent a lesson they'd never forget. The next few days fell into a routine. I went to work, came home, and spent my evenings in the basement, monitoring Karen's digital life like a spider watching flies in its web. The tracking software I'd installed was a goldmine of information. Karen was getting sloppy. Her text messages with Brent were increasingly explicit, and she was making no effort to hide their relationship from her coworkers. She'd even posted photos on Instagram from expensive restaurants around town, claiming she was treating herself during this difficult time. What she didn't know was that I was documenting everything. The most interesting discovery was Karen's relationship with her best friend and coworker, Lisa Chen. Lisa worked in HR at Karen's marketing firm, and she'd been actively helping Karen cover her tracks. The two women had exchanged dozens of messages about creating alibis, scheduling fake business trips, and even coaching Karen on what to say if I ever got suspicious. Lisa had also been researching divorce attorneys and forwarding information to Karen about how to maximize her settlement. In one particularly damning email, Lisa had written, "The key is to establish a pattern of emotional abuse. Document everything he says or does that could be construed as controlling or threatening. Even if it's innocent, we can spin it." These women weren't just planning to end my marriage. They were planning to destroy my reputation and my finances in the process. But they'd made a crucial error. They'd assumed I was just another dumb husband who would roll over and take whatever they dished out. On Thursday evening, I decided it was time to make my first move. I drove to Brent's apartment complex, a trendy high-rise downtown that probably cost more per month than I made in 3. His black BMW was parked in the visitors section, which told me he was probably entertaining someone. Given that Karen's location data showed her in the same area, I had a pretty good idea who. I parked across the street and called Red. "Hey, you busy tonight?" "Just watching TV. Why?" "Feel like helping me with a little project?" "What kind of project?" "The kind that involves dead fish and a really expensive car." Red was quiet for a moment. "Joel, you sure about this? I mean, I'm all for getting back at the bastards, but—" "I'm not going to do anything illegal," I assured him. "Just a little harmless prank, the kind of thing college kids do." "All right, give me 20 minutes. Red arrived with a cooler full of fish heads and guts from his brother's bait shop, along with a bottle of liquid that smelled like a sewer had exploded. "What the hell is that?" I asked, covering my nose. "Concentrated fish oil mixed with some other organic compounds. My brother uses it to attract catfish. It soaks into fabric and doesn't wash out easy." We waited until midnight, when the parking garage was deserted. Brent's BMW was unlocked. Apparently, he felt safe in his expensive building. We poured the fish oil mixture all over the interior, paying special attention to the leather seats and carpet. Then we distributed the fish heads strategically throughout the car and under the hood. For the finishing touch, I left a note on the windshield. "Next time, bring your own sheets. A concerned citizen." We were back in my truck and driving away within 10 minutes. "Think he'll figure out it was you?" Red asked. "Probably, but he can't prove it. And even if he could, what's he going to do? Call the police and explain that his married girlfriend's husband pranked his car?" The next morning, I was at my desk at the construction office when my phone buzzed with a text from Karen. "Joel, we need to talk. Something happened to Brent's car last night. This has to stop." I typed back, "Sorry to hear about Brent's car trouble. Maybe he should park in a better neighborhood." An hour later, she called me directly. "Joel, I know you did something to Brent's car." "I don't know what you're talking about, Karen. I was home all night. You can ask Mrs. Holloway if you want. She keeps track of everyone's comings and goings." "This isn't funny. Brent's car is ruined. The smell is so bad he can't even drive it. That's terrible. Maybe he should be more careful about where he takes other men's wives." There was a long pause. "Joel, I know you're angry, but this isn't helping anything. We need to be adults about this." "Adults?" I laughed. "Karen, adults don't lie to their spouses for 3 months. Adults don't plan to destroy their husband's life in divorce court. Adults don't create spreadsheets to track their infidelity." "How did you—" She caught herself, but it was too late. "How did I know about the spreadsheet? Maybe because you're not as smart as you think you are. Maybe because you left your laptop behind when you ran off to play house with your boyfriend." "You went through my computer?" "It's my computer too, sweetheart. Bought and paid for with my money, sitting in my house, connected to my internet. Did you really think I wouldn't look?" She was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was cold and calculating. The real Karen, not the crying victim from the other night. "Joel, I want you to know that I've been documenting your behavior. The threats, the stalking, the vandalism. My attorney says I have grounds for a restraining order." "Your attorney?" I chuckled. "You mean the one Lisa found for you? The one who specializes in taking men to the cleaners?" "Yeah, I know about him too." "You don't know anything." "I know more than you think, Karen. But here's what I want you to know. I'm not going to make this easy for you. You want to play hardball? Fine. But remember, I'm the one who builds things for a living. I know how to tear them down too." I hung up and immediately called Tony Ricci, the private investigator Red had recommended. "Mr. Ricci, this is Joel Whitfield. I need to hire you to document my wife's adultery." "When can you come in?" "How about right now?" 2 weeks later, I was sitting in Tony Ricci's office, looking at a manila folder full of photographs that would end Karen's marriage and probably her career. Tony was a thin, nervous-looking man in his 50s, who looked more like an accountant than a private investigator. But his work was thorough and professional. He documented Karen and Brent's affair in excruciating detail. Hotel receipts, restaurant bills, photographs of them entering and leaving various locations, even audio recordings of their conversations in public places. "This is some of the most comprehensive evidence I've ever gathered in an adultery case," Tony said. "Your wife and her boyfriend weren't exactly discreet. What about the other stuff? The financial planning, the conspiracy with her friend?" Tony opened another folder. "That's where it gets interesting. Lisa Chen, the HR woman who's been helping your wife, has been using company resources to research divorce attorneys and legal strategies. That's a fireable offense at most companies, and some of the advice she gave your wife could be considered conspiracy to commit fraud." "Fraud?" "Your wife has been moving money into accounts you don't know about. Small amounts, but it adds up. She's also been inflating her business expenses and claiming personal purchases as work-related. Her company's accounting department would be very interested in this information." I studied the financial documents. Karen had been skimming money from our joint accounts for months, building a secret nest egg for her new life with Brent. She'd also been using her company credit card for personal expenses, including hotel rooms for her affair. "What do you recommend?" I asked. "Depends on what you want to accomplish. If you just want a clean divorce with a fair settlement, we have more than enough evidence. But if you want to really hurt them..." Tony shrugged. "Well, there are options." That weekend was Maplewood Heights' annual summer festival. The whole town turned out for food trucks, live music, and the kind of small-town socializing that Karen had always pretended to enjoy. She'd insisted we attend every year, using it as an opportunity to network and show off our perfect marriage to her co-workers and clients. This year, I decided to give the town a different kind of show. I arrived at the festival alone, which immediately drew attention. Mrs. Holloway was working the church bake sale booth, and she waved me over as soon as she saw me. "Joel, honey, where's Karen? I haven't seen her around the neighborhood lately." "She's been staying downtown, Mrs. Holloway. We're having some marriage troubles." The old woman's eyes lit up with the prospect of fresh gossip. "Oh my. I'm so sorry to hear that. Is there anything I can do?" "Actually, there is." I pulled out my phone and opened the airdrop feature. "I've been trying to get some photos to Karen's coworkers, but I don't have all their contact information. You know everyone in town. Could you help me share these with people from her office?" Mrs. Holloway was happy to help. Within minutes, she'd identified a dozen people from Karen's marketing firm who were at the festival. I moved through the crowd, casually airdropping a carefully edited video to their phones. The video was a compilation of security footage from the Starlite Motel, showing Karen and Brent entering and leaving room 237 on multiple occasions. Tony had enhanced the footage and added timestamps, making it clear that this wasn't a one-time mistake, but an ongoing affair. The reaction was immediate and devastating. I watched from across the festival grounds as people checked their phones, gasped, and started showing the video to others. Within an hour, it seemed like half the town had seen it. The whispers and stares were unmistakable. That's when Karen and Brent arrived. They walked into the festival holding hands, apparently having decided to go public with their relationship. Karen was wearing a sundress and designer sunglasses, looking like she didn't have a care in the world. Brent was in khakis and a polo shirt, every inch the successful businessman. They made it about 50 feet before someone recognized them from the video. I couldn't hear the conversation from where I was standing, but I could see the body language. The person who approached them, a woman from Karen's office, was clearly confronting them about what she'd seen. Karen's face went white, and Brent looked around nervously as more people started staring. That's when Brent spotted me across the crowd. He marched over with the kind of aggressive swagger that screamed, "Rich boy looking for a fight." "You son of a bitch," he said loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear. What did you do? I took a sip of my beer and smiled. I'm sorry, do we know each other? Don't play dumb. I know you sent that video. What video? Brent's face was getting red. The video of me and Karen. You've been stalking us, haven't you? Stalking? I laughed. Buddy, I've been at work all week. Ask anyone at Murphy Construction. But if there's a video of you and my wife floating around, well, maybe you should have thought about that before you started screwing a married woman. A crowd was gathering now. Karen had pushed through the people and was standing beside Brent, her face a mask of humiliation and rage. Joel, stop this, she hissed. You're embarrassing yourself. I'm embarrassing myself? I gestured toward the crowd of onlookers, many of whom were still watching the video on their phones. Karen, you're the one who's been sneaking around motel rooms for 3 months. I'm just a guy trying to enjoy a beer at the town festival. Brent stepped closer, trying to intimidate me. You need to back off, old man. This is between you and your wife. Old man? I set down my beer and stood up. At 6 feet tall and 200 pounds of construction worker muscle, I wasn't exactly intimidating, but I wasn't a pushover either. Son, you've been fucking my wife in cheap motel rooms and now you want to lecture me about boundaries? That's enough, Brent said, and took a swing at me. I saw it coming from a mile away. Brent might have been younger and better dressed, but he clearly hadn't been in many fights. His punch was wild and telegraphed. I ducked easily, and his momentum carried him past me, right into the mud puddle beside the dunking booth. Brent went down hard, his khakis and polo shirt instantly soaked with dirty water and festival mud. The crowd erupted in laughter and applause. Someone started recording with their phone. I looked down at him and shook my head. You know, Brent, for a guy who's supposed to be good with his hands, you're pretty disappointing. Karen must be faking it. The laughter got louder. Brent struggled to his feet, covered in mud and humiliation, while Karen tried to help him without getting dirty herself. This isn't over, Brent snarled. Yeah, it is, I said. It's been over since the moment you decided to mess with another man's wife. You just didn't know it yet. I picked up my beer and walked away, leaving Karen and Brent standing in the mud while half the town watched and laughed. But the real show was just getting started. The festival incident went viral locally within hours. Someone had posted the video of Brent falling in the mud to social media, and it was being shared throughout Maplewood Heights and the surrounding area. The comments were brutal. People were calling Brent a homewrecker and Karen a cheating wife, and the video of their affair was being shared alongside the footage of the confrontation. I spent Sunday morning in my workshop, monitoring the fallout on social media and planning my next move. Karen had been calling and texting nonstop, alternating between threats and pleas for mercy. Brent had sent me several messages that could charitably be described as unhinged. But the most interesting development was a call I received from Lisa Chen. Joel, this is Lisa, Karen's friend from work. We need to talk. Do we? Please, can we meet somewhere private? There are things you need to know. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop across town, away from anyone who might recognize us. Lisa was a petite Asian woman in her 30s, normally polished and professional. Today, she looked like she hadn't slept in days. I want to make a deal, she said without preamble. What kind of deal? I'll tell you everything I know about Karen's plans, and you leave me out of whatever you're planning to do to her. I sipped my coffee and studied her face. Why would you betray your best friend? Because she's not my best friend anymore. She's a liability. Lisa pulled out her phone and showed me a text message. Look at what she sent me this morning. The message was from Karen. If this gets back to my company, I'm telling them you were the one who came up with the plan. You're the HR expert, not me. She's planning to throw you under the bus, I observed. She already is. Karen called my boss yesterday and told him that I'd been giving her inappropriate advice about her abusive husband. She's setting me up to take the fall for everything. And you're willing to help me stop her? I'm willing to help myself survive this mess. Lisa leaned forward. Joel, you have no idea how deep this goes. Karen isn't just planning to divorce you, she's planning to destroy you completely. Lisa opened her laptop and showed me documents I hadn't seen before. Karen had been working with a divorce attorney who specialized in high-conflict cases, and their strategy was scorched earth. They were planning to claim that I was emotionally and financially abusive, that I had threatened Karen, and that I had been controlling her access to money and friends. They're going to ask for a restraining order based on fabricated evidence, Lisa explained. Karen has been keeping a journal of fake incidents, documenting things that never happened. She's also been recording conversations with you, editing them to make you sound threatening. Can they get away with that? In the short term, yes. Even if you eventually prove the allegations are false, the damage to your reputation and finances could be permanent. And Karen's attorney is very good at making men look like monsters in court. I studied the documents. Karen's plan was diabolical in its thoroughness. She'd been building a case against me for months, creating a fictional narrative of abuse and control that would justify taking everything I'd worked for. What do you want in exchange for this information? I asked. I want you to keep my name out of whatever you're planning, and I want Karen to pay for trying to destroy me. What makes you think I'm planning anything? Lisa smiled grimly. Because you're not the kind of man who rolls over and takes it. Karen made the mistake of underestimating you, but I won't make the same error. She was right. I had been planning something, and Lisa's information gave me the final piece of the puzzle. That evening, I called Red and asked him to meet me at the Rusty Anchor, our usual bar. It was a blue-collar place where construction workers, mechanics, and other working-class folks went to drink beer and complain about their jobs. The kind of place Karen had always looked down on. Red was already there when I arrived, nursing a beer and chatting with the bartender, Mike Sullivan. Mike was a former cop who'd opened the bar after retiring, and he knew everyone in town. "Joel," Mike called out. "Heard you had some excitement at the festival yesterday." News travels fast, especially when it involves someone getting knocked into the mud. Buy you a beer? I accepted the beer and filled Red and Mike in on the latest developments. Both men listened with growing anger as I explained Karen's plan to destroy me in court. "That's fucking evil," Red said. "Pardon my French, but Jesus Christ, Joel. She's trying to ruin your life." "What are you going to do?" Mike asked. "I'm going to beat her to the punch. Karen wants to play dirty? Fine. But she's about to learn that I can play dirtier." I pulled out my phone and opened the folder of evidence Tony Ricci had compiled. "Gentlemen, would you like to see what a cheating wife looks like when she thinks nobody's watching?" For the next hour, I showed them everything. The photos, the videos, the financial records, the emails plotting my destruction. By the time I was finished, half the bar had gathered around to look at the evidence. "This is some serious shit," Mike said. "You could destroy her with this stuff." "That's the plan, but I need to be smart about it. Karen's expecting me to react emotionally, to do something stupid that she can use against me. Instead, I'm going to be methodical." "What do you need from us?" Red asked. "Just witness testimony. When Karen tries to claim I was abusive or controlling, I need people who can testify about my real character. People who've known me for years and can vouch for the fact that I'm not the monster she's going to paint me as." "You got it," Mike said. "And if you need anything else, anything at all, you just ask." The next morning, I put my plan into motion. First, I called Karen's boss at the marketing firm and requested a meeting. I brought Tony Ricci with me, along with a folder full of evidence about Karen's affair and her misuse of company resources. Karen's boss, a middle-aged woman named Patricia Wells, was professional but clearly uncomfortable with the situation. "Mr. Whitfield, I appreciate you bringing this to my attention, but I'm not sure how much I can do about your marital problems." "This isn't about my marriage, Ms. Wells. This is about your employee using company resources to facilitate an extramarital affair and potentially defrauding your company. I showed her the evidence of Karen using her company credit card for personal expenses, including hotel rooms where she met Brent. I also showed her the emails between Karen and Lisa, discussing how to manipulate HR policies to Karen's advantage. Additionally, I said, I have reason to believe that Karen is planning to file false allegations against me in divorce court. If she does that, and if your company continues to employ her, you could be seen as supporting someone who commits perjury. Patricia studied the documents with growing concern. I'll need to discuss this with our legal department. Of course, but I thought you should know that I'm planning to release this information publicly if Karen follows through with her threats against me. I wanted to give you the opportunity to distance your company from the situation before it becomes a public scandal. We left Patricia's office with the understanding that Karen's employment was in serious jeopardy. Next, I visited Brent's company, a mid-sized IT consulting firm downtown. I met with the managing partner and showed him the same evidence, focusing on how Brent's affair with a married client could expose the company to liability. Mr. Wallace was hired to provide professional services to Ms. Whitfield's company, I explained. Instead, he used that professional relationship to seduce a married woman and facilitate the misuse of company resources. That's a serious breach of professional ethics. By the end of the day, both Karen and Brent were facing professional consequences for their personal choices. But I was just getting started. The dominoes began falling faster than I had anticipated. Karen was suspended from her job pending a full investigation into her misuse of company resources. Lisa was fired outright after the company discovered she'd been using her HR access to help Karen plan her divorce strategy. Brent's consulting contract was terminated, and his firm was considering filing a lawsuit against him for breach of professional conduct. But Karen wasn't going down without a fight. On Wednesday morning, I was served with a restraining order. Karen had gone to court with her fabricated evidence and convinced a judge that I was a threat to her safety. The order required me to stay at least 500 feet away from her, which meant I couldn't go to several places around town where she might be present. She'd also filed for divorce, asking for alimony, half of all marital assets, and exclusive use of our house. I called my attorney, David Morrison, a tough old lawyer who'd handled my business contracts for years. Joel, this restraining order is problematic, David said. Even though we know the allegations are false, it's going to be difficult to prove that in court. And if Karen testifies that you threatened her, it becomes a he-said-she-said situation. What if I have evidence that she's lying? What kind of evidence? I smiled. The kind that proves she's been planning this whole thing for months. That afternoon, I met with David and Tony Ricci to review all the evidence we'd gathered. David's expression grew more amazed as we went through the documents. This is extraordinary, he said. I've never seen such comprehensive documentation of a spouse's deception. The emails alone prove that she's been planning to make false allegations against you. Can we get the restraining order dismissed? Better than that. We can file criminal charges against her for perjury and filing false police reports. And we can sue her for defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress. What about the divorce? With this evidence, she'll be lucky to get anything. Adultery is still grounds for an at-fault divorce in this state, and her financial misconduct means she's not entitled to alimony. We might even be able to get her to pay your attorney fees. But I wasn't interested in just winning the divorce. I wanted Karen to understand the full consequences of her choices. That evening, I created a website. It was simple and professional looking, titled The Truth About Karen Whitfield. I uploaded all the evidence of her affair, her financial misconduct, her conspiracy with Lisa, and her plan to make false allegations against me. I included the photos, videos, emails, and financial records, along with a detailed timeline of her deception. Then I sent the link to everyone in Karen's contact list. The response was immediate and devastating. Karen's friends, family, and professional contacts all received a comprehensive look at who she really was behind the perfect facade she'd maintained for years. The evidence was so overwhelming that no one could dismiss it as the bitter ramblings of an angry husband. Karen's mother called me that night. "Joel, I don't know what to say. I had no idea Karen was capable of something like this." "Neither did I, Mrs. Peterson. The things she wrote about you in those emails. I'm so ashamed. You've been nothing but good to our family, and she treated you like garbage. I appreciate you saying that. What she's planning to do to you in court, the lies she's going to tell, it's evil, Joel. It's just evil." Similar calls came in throughout the night. Karen's own family was turning against her, disgusted by the evidence of her calculated cruelty. But the coup de grace came the next morning. I was having coffee in my kitchen when I saw Karen's Honda pull into the driveway. She got out of the car looking haggard and desperate, her perfect appearance finally cracking under the weight of her collapsing world. She pounded on the front door. "Joel, Joel, open this door. We need to talk." I opened the door but stayed on my side of the threshold, careful not to violate the restraining order she'd obtained against me. "What do you want, Karen?" "You have to take down that website. You're destroying my life." "I'm not destroying anything. I'm just telling the truth." "Please, Joel, I'll drop the restraining order. I'll agree to a fair divorce settlement. Just please take down that website." "A fair settlement? Karen, you were planning to take everything I own based on lies. You were going to claim I abused you, that I threatened you, that I controlled you. You had a whole strategy worked out to destroy my reputation and my finances." Tears were streaming down her face now. "I was scared. I didn't know how to tell you about Brent, and Lisa said..." "Lisa said what? That you should frame me for abuse? That you should steal money from our joint accounts? That you should use your company's resources to plan your affair? It wasn't supposed to happen like this." "How was it supposed to happen, Karen? You were going to lie in court, take half of everything I've worked for, and ride off into the sunset with your boyfriend. The only thing that went wrong with your plan is that you got caught." She looked around desperately, as if searching for some argument that would convince me to show mercy. "Joel, I know I made mistakes, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can work through our problems." "Our problems?" I laughed. "Karen, our only problem is that you're a lying, cheating, manipulative sociopath who tried to destroy an innocent man to cover up your own crimes." "Don't say that. You know that's not who I am. Actually, that's exactly who you are. I have 3 months of emails proving it. I have financial records proving it. I have video evidence proving it. The woman I thought I married never existed. She was just a character you played while planning to stab me in the back." Karen's desperation turned to rage. "You bastard! You think you're so smart, don't you? Well, I still have that restraining order. I can still make your life hell in court." "No, you can't." I pulled out my phone and showed her a text message from my attorney. "The restraining order was dismissed an hour ago. The judge reviewed the evidence of your perjury and decided you're not a credible witness. Oh, and the district attorney is considering filing criminal charges against you for filing false police reports." The color drained from her face. "What?" "It's over, Karen. Your job, your reputation, your plan to destroy me. It's all over. Brent's company fired him, by the way. Something about breach of professional ethics. I heard he's moving back to live with his parents in Ohio. This can't be happening. It's happening, and it's all your own doing. You made every single choice that led to this moment." Karen stood on my doorstep, her perfect life in ruins, finally understanding that her actions had consequences. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. "Now you get to start over with nothing, just like you were planning to make me do. The difference is, I didn't deserve it. You do." I closed the door and walked back to my kitchen, leaving Karen standing alone in the driveway of the house she'd never live in again. Through the window, I watched her get in her car and drive away for the last time. Mrs. Holloway was working in her garden, and she waved at me through the window. The old woman had been following the whole drama with obvious fascination, and I knew she'd be dining out on this story for years to come. My phone buzzed with a text from Red. Heard the restraining order got tossed. Want to celebrate at the Anchor tonight? I typed back, absolutely. First round's on me. As I sat in my quiet house, my house now, I reflected on the past few weeks. Karen had tried to destroy me based on the assumption that I was weak, stupid, and powerless. She'd underestimated the quiet man she'd married, thinking he'd be easy to crush. She'd been wrong about everything. I'd given Karen exactly what she deserved, the complete collapse of the life she'd built on lies and manipulation. She'd wanted to play games with people's lives, to use and discard them when it suited her purposes. Now she knew how it felt to be on the receiving end. Sometimes the good guy wins, sometimes justice prevails, and sometimes the person who thinks they're the smartest one in the room discovers they've been outsmarted by someone they never saw coming. Karen had learned that lesson the hard way, and I'd made sure she'd never forget it.